Hello, bonjour, konnichiwa, marhaba, yakwe, and hola. Welcome to our virtual city life recap, where you're going to have the opportunity to learn from 19 different city departments on how they work and operate. You're going to have the opportunity to also see how you can get connected and make a difference within our community. So, if you're interested in also participating in an in-person event, we offer them in fall and also in the spring. You can find us at www.cityofdubuque.org/citylife. So without further ado, let's begin.
Thank you, Timoy, and I think you need to get a big virtual applause. You've just been doing a fantastic job. I always love to hear your spirit and you just amaze me. You're doing a fantastic job. So
Thank you.
Let me cue this up as well. Okay, can you see my screen? Okay, I see some nods. Awesome, thanks. We're going to shrink this down, move this. Okay, and a little birdie told me before we started here that people wanted to hear about boards and commissions. And I believe that is one of our first slides. So we're going to jump right into that. So good evening, everyone. My name is Todd Dulsing. I'm the airport director at the Dubuque Regional Airport. Little background about me. I actually am from Dubuque, born and raised. I went away to college for a couple of years, not really knowing what I wanted to do with my life. I had an uncle who had a friend who had an airplane when I was young, and he gave me a ride, and I was literally that kid looking out the window just in a maze. And I think once you get that in your blood, it just kind of sticks with you. So I did end up coming back and went to the University of Dubuque and graduated both with my flight and aviation management degree with a minor in business. Started out flying corporate with some of the folks on the field while I also worked as a ground handler. That's the folks that pump the gas, park the planes, hangar them, etc. And back then, this was the early 90s. Or I'm sorry, the mid 90s. And back then there wasn't a pilot shortage. As a matter of fact, pilots made very little money, literally sleeping on air mattresses, no insurance, the whole 9 yards. So I kind of came to that fork in the road. And I was also shadowing an airport operations position at the airport. And those are the guys, we'll talk about that a little bit later, but I ended up going to that position. Then, I just kind of progressed. I just kind of kept working my way up the ladder, got experience with other airports, getting on different committees and different organizations, especially in Iowa and in what we call the 4 states region. And then outside of the 4 states, then I'm also in the Great Lakes regions because we kind of border it. So that's a little bit about me. And as Tim we were talking offline in 2009 when there was a recession, all that, he kind of hit the same thing. But coming out of the pandemic, I have a feeling there's going to be a lot of, we're going to have an aviation job shortage. So there's going to be a lot of demand for all aspects of aviation. And we'll talk about that a little bit more as we go along here. So enough about me, the Airport Commission. So if you are interested, we do have a 5-member Airport Commission. They are appointed by the City Council for a 4-year term, and they basically oversee and help manage the airport. The Airport Commission hires an airport director, me, to handle the day-to-day operations with our staff. And you can see our commissioners there. Mike, couple that I don't have pictures for, I apologize. But Mike Phillips, he's the chair. Marianne Kurtz-Weber, vice chair. Sue Clemenson, RJ Blocker, and Doug Brotherton. And you don't have to be a pilot or have a huge background in aviation to become a commissioner. We'll bring you up to speed. If aviation is your passion, we'd love to have you. Quick, we always like to bring their mission statement up just to let you know what we're all about: quality, viable, competitive airport services and facilities, while promoting sustainable economic development within the region. This is some of the airport commission goals. We are a commercial airport, so we obviously would like to retain our existing, which has been a challenge with COVID, and we'll get to that, but also expand corporate and general aviation services. And that's the behind the scenes things that unfortunately, virtually, we can't do, but maybe you could sneak in on the airport tour next year and we'll get you behind the fence, inside the back rooms and the bowels of the buildings and show you all that fun stuff. But doing things like this to help increase visibility and awareness of airport services. We have a lot of facilities we maintain. We'd like to expand those facilities and new businesses and increase and diversify, of course, our revenue streams. So I think Kelly mentioned she is and her staff are small and mighty. I'd like to say we are the same. The airport is a 24/7, 365. We never close. The runways are always open. In the rare occasion we have a terrible ice storm or snowstorm, they might be closed temporarily, but the airport itself is always open. So you've got the airport commission, myself, the director, and then basically I have 4 departments. Our airport administration is Dan Claus, assistant director, and he oversees the airport operations and maintenance department. Cheryl Sheldon is our airport accountant, and Karen Spizak is actually a part-time airport marketing coordinator, but she quite honestly is a full-time position. They all do a great job. All of our staff does. But in airport operations, we have 3 airport operations specialists that rotate a 24-hour shift. So one of those folks on is Jason, Jesse, or Roger is actually on right now. In the occasion we need coverage, Dan is also trained to cover their shift, and then I can also cover at least during non-carrier times, and that's just because I haven't kept my certification up. Airport maintenance, these folks basically work Monday through Friday, and then of course they are on call out for winter operations and really anything else we need. Jason DeMayo, Art Martin, Jeff Petty, those 3 are maintenance positions. We have a full-time mechanic, Bob Moyer, and then Connie Simon, who is it says seasonal there, but I would say more part-time. And she's been really instrumental helping out with all the additional cleaning that's been we've had to take on post or during the pandemic. Then another department we have is called the Dubuque Jet Center, and we'll touch on this a little bit more in a minute. But there is an FBO supervisor there, and then an assistant supervisor, Tim Furlong. We have 2 receptionists, Tina Herrig and Tina Malone, and they rotate. So there's only one on at a time. And then we have part-time line service workers, and there's quite often a job opportunity there. It is a part-time, but we're fortunate we have the University of Dubuque on the field, and we've got a lot of aviation students that are interested to work at the airport. So as Timo mentioned, we're at the 10,000 or 30,000 foot view here, whatever your pleasure is. And the airport itself is about 1,300 acres, 1,300 acres. We've got about 6 miles of perimeter fence. Sorry, should be drawing on the right screen. About 6 miles of perimeter fence. We're located just 7 miles south of Dubuque on Highway 61. We take care of miles of pavement, acres of turf and woodland, agricultural land, navigational equipment, hangars, offices, business park, fuel farms, etc. As I mentioned, we're a 24/7 operation, and we're basically like a small town. We're a town within a town. If you split this picture up, right down the middle of your screen, on the right side is our commercial air service terminal. So you come off the highway, parking lot, terminal, apron. And then on the left side is primarily our general aviation. So you can actually see the GA side of things is quite a bit bigger than the terminal. Hangars, university flight school, et cetera. And again, and a business park on the top there. We'll talk more about those. And of course, we have 2 runways. For those of you that don't know, you always land and take off into the wind. So technically, we kind of have 4. Both are right about 6,500 foot long. Our north-south runway on the bottom is 150 foot wide, and the other one is 100 foot wide. And then all the approaches, et cetera, and connecting taxiways to get you to the apron. So I mentioned the commercial side of things, and we do have a terminal that was opened, a new terminal, what I would say, and I was lucky to be the project manager on that, from land acquisition all the way through fruition, including the utilities, site work, design, everything that goes along with it. And that was opened up in 2016. It's a 33,000 square foot building. Our tenants include American Airlines, of course, with daily flights to Chicago. We have Sun Country Airlines with destinational charters. As a matter of fact, we've got one going to Biloxi. They're going to Biloxi tomorrow. That's a 737. I believe there's 120 some people on that one. So that's good. Avis Rental Car. We have a restaurant that's partially open right now. We're kind of playing the flight schedule a little bit. But we also do a lot of private public charters. So for example, you may have saw in the news a week or two ago, the Iowa Army National Guard 133rd had a homecoming. So we were able to welcome over 100 soldiers back to greet their loved ones after being gone for a year. And I'll tell you, there's nothing when you see, you see the, grandparent or something come off and the grandchild come up and jump in the arms. That's just heartwarming. But when you see 100 soldiers come off and meet their families after a year of serving in Qatar, that's it about breaks your heart. But so it's a special part of our job. We also have like the Major League Baseball game that's coming up in August, I believe it is, in Dyersville. We're going to be hosting both the teams are going to be flying into Dubuque, and we're going to have a whole slew of private aircraft. Just some quick statistics. I'm not going to bore you with a bunch of these numbers slides, but just so you know, pre-pandemic, we saw about 37,000 people or so fly out of the Dubuque airport. And then obviously a lot of those people fly back. And then of course, some people just fly in. So you can double that number. Let's just call it 40,000, 80,000 plus with well-wishers, as in people dropping folks off to fly out or greeting them as they come back. So about 80,000 people pass through our terminal, even a little more because this is Americans numbers, but in 2019, 2020, and as I'll show you in a minute with some COVID slides, not just Dubuque, but globally, aviation took a huge hit. I mentioned Dubuque Jet Center. That's one of our an airport run department. Matter of fact, our administration office in the picture there are on the top floor of this building. If I can get my cursor on the top, that's the administration floor. And then the Jet Center's on the bottom. And that's our general aviation. So they do all the fueling, hangaring of the of general aviation aircraft that come in, as well as the commercial aircraft. So just to give you a quick idea of how many gallons of fuel we sell, and this is jet and low lead. So typically in a normal year, it's usually around 500,000 gallons. Obviously in FY21, those will be less, but we do have fuel farms. We've got 2 jet trucks, 3 low lead trucks, depending on if it's a jet engine or a piston engine, and we have a self fuel farm. What a lot of people don't know is how busy we are at Dubuque Airport. And a large part of that is thanks to the University of Dubuque flight program. But quite honestly, our numbers did not drop off like they did at many airports. In 2020, we had almost 65,000 aircraft operations, and an aircraft operation is a landing is counted as one. And then if you take off, that's counted as one. So, and with the University of Dubuque, when they train, they do what's called touch and goes. So they come in, they land, take back off. So that's 2. So we've always been behind Des Moines to give you a Iowa comparison. And as you know, Des Moines is a large airport. So for example, in 2019, as it shows on your screen, they had almost 80,000 operations. And Dubuque had it says there, just under or just over 64,000, and then the next would be Cedar Rapids, and then I like to throw in ORD means Chicago Air. So in 2019, Chicago Air had 921,000 aircraft operations. Now you look at 2020, and Dubuque was still holding at almost 65,000. Des Moines dropped down to 58,000. Cedar Rapids 42, and Chicago O'Hare almost cut in half. They got down to 539. So that's how big of an impact COVID had on the aviation business. University of Dubuque, they are a tenant of the airport, but we always, obviously we're going to recognize them. They're a huge partner at the airport. They've got a brand new facility called the Babka Flight Center. It's 11,000 square foot of classrooms, office space, simulators, 90,000 square foot of aircraft parking. They've got 300 plus aviation students and staff, 30 aircraft, including what you see on the left, fixed wing. And then even on the top, I believe they've got 5 helicopters in various different sizes. And they actually right now are flying 6 days a week. They have 3 flight blocks. They fly from 6 a.m. Until about 10 p.m. And quite honestly, they fly after that as well because they have to get night current and get their night cross countries in and all that. So it's not uncommon to hear a little plane buzz over town at midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning. They're just training at Dubuque. Okay, some of our projects that we've got coming up. Our master plan, and I really encourage, if you want to know anything at all about the airport, go to www.dubuque.airportstudy.com, and we're in the draft form, and we are accepting comments, even questions, whatever, input. And we do have public workshops. There'll be one more scheduled for the summer of 2021. But we really encourage people, if they have any interest in aviation or the airport, it's a great resource, and public input is more than welcome. That's exactly what we're looking for. EAA, Experimental Aircraft Association, this was just a little project, but I think it's really, really cool, especially for maybe some of the folks on this call with kids or grandkids or nieces and nephews that are coming into town or whatever. Right off Aviation Drive, so as you're going to the terminal, or on the right-hand side, there's an observation area, and it's nice that they got just this last fall got a grant from Rotary, and we've got those cool binoculars, and they're ADA compliant, which also makes them very comfortable for younger folks to be able to see, and actually you can listen. There's a radio station you can turn into 88.9, and you can hear live the air traffic control tower talking to airplanes. And we also have a pavilion there with picnic tables. And the EA also has a speaker coming from the pavilion that also broadcasts it. So not only are you looking at the planes, but you're listening to the tower. And it's just it sits high up on the hill, as flat as it is at the airport. I know Tim Wow will say Dubuque's not flat, but it's flat at the airport. This is one of our highest points, and you can see everything. Terminal, runways, general aviation. It's a great place to bring some family and friends. A couple more quick projects. So we do have a new lighting project. We're changing out all of our old fixtures with brand new LED fixtures. So all those runway lights that you see from the highway are all getting replaced. As well as a new electrical vault. And this project happens to be federally funded. So it's 90% federally funded, 10% local. An upcoming project we have is Taxiway Alpha. I won't get into bore you with the details, but our existing taxiway runs along where I've got my little cursor, and there's a proposal to put in a new taxiway parallel to that. So that's a project that we're just getting into the design phase, and then in the future, it'll be laid out for about 3 years. After Duratio, we switched a couple projects around. We ended up deciding to use an existing generator that we had for our airfield lighting. We're getting a new one. So we're going to keep that old generator, and we're going to relocate it to hook up to 2 buildings that currently are not on emergency power. The terminal, the airfield lighting, the entrance row lights, parking lights, some of the outbuilding administration is under generator, but these 2 buildings in the majority are not. So with this new generator, as long as there's fuel available, the airport will operate just like it would any other day. Also with the growing University of Dubuque program, we're installing an additional 20,000 gallon avgas aviation fuel tank. And this will just help us so we don't have to purchase loads. We can plan ahead a little bit. We can play the market and try to get the best bang for everybody's buck. Our budget, and I hope I'm doing good on time. For some reason, my clock, oh yeah, we're doing all right. Quick couple slides here on our budget, just to show you what our resources are, our revenues, and our expenditures. As you can see, we're about $300,000 to $300,000 in tax askings, which that equates to about $779 for the average homeowner. But you also have to take into consideration the economic benefit that an airport provides to its community. So this study is a little bit old. As a matter of fact, they're in the process of updating it now. This is from 2007, so these numbers are actually going to go up. But at that time, the economic study showed, 383 jobs are supported by the Dubuque Airport, 13 million in annual payroll for those jobs, 34 million in total economic activity or output. How much the visitors when they come in on the commercial airline spend, how much they spend when they come in general aviation. So that's quite a significant impact to a community or an airport has. Community engagement. This is quite honestly one of my favorite things. We do a lot of things at the airport. Number one, we want to bring attention and educate folks with all the things that we have to offer out there. I already touched on the University of Dubuque on the top right. Blue Skies is an aircraft maintenance facility we have at the airport. We're partnering with Northeast Iowa Community College to start a new avionics program. Just recently this fall, Experimental Aircraft Association, we entered into a lease with them so they could do a youth build. So that's actually, and you can see some of the young folks in there and even some of the older mentors that are helping them. But they actually built an RV-12 aircraft, and I think it was last week or 2 weeks, it got the official sign off from the FAA, so it's going to be ready to be test flown. So, I mean, that's really cool. You've got students, high school students in Dubuque building aircraft out at the Dubuque Airport, which is it's just something I love to see, getting the youth involved. We do tons and tons of tours, preschool, elementary, middle school, you name it. We do tours. And then we also do all kinds of outside of school. We do all kinds of groups. We had the Carnegie Stout Library out and did a preschool reading group in our terminal, which was fun. That was new. We'd never done that before. And then the Multicultural Family Center and others come out just to check out what's new and what's going on and what opportunities there are and what they can get involved in. I mentioned we do a lot of events. Temwa was out just last weekend, the April 17th. We did a 5K run the runways to bring awareness towards human trafficking on your left side of your screen there. And runners actually were able to run out on the taxiway, down a runway, up another taxiway, around the terminal apron and back. So that was really cool. We've got some TSA pre-check enrollments. If you're a frequent flyer, I always recommend that. July 3rd air show and aircraft viewing. It was canceled last year due to COVID, but as of now, we've already started all the FAA paperwork, and the plans, quite honestly, start the day after the air show. But we're hoping to have actually what's in the picture there, the A-10 back this year is what it's on the schedule. And we do have an aircraft viewing on the apron as well. North American Trainers Association. These are, and we have that many planes. That's a picture from Dubuque Airport. We've had up to almost 100 of those types of planes, and they practice here before they go to Oshkosh. So it's hot, but it's a lot of fun. And then we're also hoping to do our Robert L. Martin Terminal dedication ceremony late summer. With COVID and some paperwork issues that might get pushed off to spring, but we're still working with a committee to make that happen. I mentioned COVID impact. I'm not going to get into the details, but quite honestly, started in March. There was some federal support that the airports and airlines received along the way. Dubuque did see a 3-month suspension of service, but I'm glad to report that we're back. This next slide really shows the impact. The top line, the blue line, is 2019. That's pretty much a normal year. Sorry, I should have been using my cursor. Pretty much a normal year. On the blue line, you can see where the summer traffic picks up, and then it drops off when the kids go back to school, and then it picks back up for holiday travel and business. But in the orange line, 2020, you can see started out better than 2019. Then it got, about the same as it was. And then the pandemic hit, and boom, it was a 96% decrease in people going through TSA screening. So this is just taking numbers from people going through screening, and on the first day of a month. I'm happy to report that as of 2021, we have recovered a little. It's not great, but there's potential, and I'm happy to report there's been over 1 million passengers traveling per day, and sometimes it was even at 1.5. So we expect that to go up a little bit, probably level off again, because these are all leisure travelers at this point. It probably won't be till third, fourth quarter of 2021, maybe first quarter of 22 before we're going to see an actual business travel pick back up. And that's when we'll get back up to that blue line. Just a quick, American Airlines was our airline, or is the airline that serves Dubuque, and you can see for a full year, it lost $8.9 billion. So that tends to eat through your reserves pretty quick. But it wasn't just American, it was all airlines. Nobody was spared. Real ID, I'm just going to touch on this until yesterday. The Real ID was going to be going into effect October of this year, 2021. But due to COVID and everything, we just got word from the DOT that they're extending it to May of 2023. But what is a Real ID? Hopefully, if you don't have one, you're looking into it. I think it's good for everybody to have. It is focusing on anti-terrorism, fraud protection, security specific, just to the production of the driver's license and ID card. So if you're planning on going into any federal facilities at all, you're going to need a Real ID. I don't know if a lot of you are going to be going to nuclear power plants, but if you are, you're going to need to have a Real ID. And if you fly on any commercial airlines at all, they won't let you through screening without a Real ID or a passport. A passport is also acceptable, but I personally, unless I need to carry my passport, I don't prefer to do that. But what a Real ID is, it's got the little star. If you question if you have it or not, it's got a little star on the top right corner of your license. And then here are some things that you will need to bring with you. I recommend going on the DMV's website. They've got a really cool checklist. It says, do you have a passport? Yes. Do you have a birth certificate? Yes. Do you have a piece of mail with your address on it? Yes. Okay. And a whole bunch of questions, and it'll tell you what to bring to get that Real ID. Learn to fly, Temois. You listening? I'm just kidding. I know you are. But learning to fly, why do it? It unlocks a world of possibility. There is the personal freedom. If you needed it for business, there's business efficiency, there's time. So wherever it takes you to drive a car in a small plane, like the ones pictured with the University of Dubuque on the left side of your screen, or even the one on the right with Key City Flyers, it's usually about half. So if it's a 3-hour drive to Des Moines, 3.5-hour drive to Des Moines, probably an hour and 15 or so, depends on winds. And a lot of people have the misconception that you have to be rich to be a pilot. That's not the case. If you can afford a bass boat or a pontoon or a decent, we're a river town, a decent boat, more than likely you can afford to even own your own plane, because a small plane like the one on the right, depending on how it's equipped and the age, it won't be a brand new plane, but you can pick up a plane for, $20,000 or so. And some of these bass boats are definitely going higher than that. And you still have to buy a slip, right? If you're in a boat, well, here you rent a hangar. You have to buy fuel on the river. You buy fuel for your plane. and you can fly your plane 12 months out of the year. How many months can you use your pontoon boat or bass boat? 3, maybe. So, but professionally, yeah, no better program than the University of Dubuque. They do a fantastic job. For fun or business, you can join Key City Flyers. You don't have to own your own plane. There's an entry fee, and then basically a monthly fee, and then whatever you fly, so that you get billed by the hour. The EAA, if you are interested, is going to have a informational meeting Saturday, May 15th from 9 a.m. to 12. And you can find out more information on their website, eaa.org. How am I doing on time, Tenwa? I don't want to go over. I do, if we have some time, I've got some just fun test your knowledge. We're not going to grade anybody, but if we don't have time, I can cut it off there.
You are all good. You got more than enough time.
Okay. All right. So let's test some knowledge, see what you do know about the airport. So, and these are real questions that we get all the time. We hear flights are always canceled in Dubuque. You know, what do you think is the actual percentage of all canceled flights? And you can just, I'll give you a second to read through them: 2.4, 10.6, or 21.1. And you can put your answer in your, oh, actually, I see some people chiming in. You want to give me the, give me some answers, Tembo. We'll do that. I haven't done that virtually yet.
All right. So it looks like we're getting 2.4. I see 2.4. I think 10.6. So we got 2 for 2.4.
Right. Well, good. Well, people are, you know, people know more about the airport than I was expecting. That's good. But yeah, 2.4. So that's almost a 98% completion rate. So that's really good. So when people say, oh man, you know, my flight got canceled and I wasn't able to make it back into Dubuque, if you gave me, excuse me, if you gave me a 98% completion or a chance of winning at the boat, I would take it. So another one we always hear is the late flight is always canceled, because remember that late flight comes in between 9 and 11, depending on the schedule. You can lock in your answers there with Tema. And then that actually becomes what's called an RON, or an overnight flight. So that flight comes in, it lands, it stays in Dubuque overnight, and then goes out the next morning. So what do we have for an answer or two?
All right, they are rolling in, and I am seeing 2.5. 2.5. I see an 80.3.
I think people are catching on to me. I'm glad we didn't get any always canceled, but they are correct, 2.5. So it's real close to the overall flights rate. And another thing we actually hear is, oh, there wasn't that many people on the plane, so they canceled it. That plane could be empty and they're still going to fly it into Dubuque, because the dispatch and the placing of planes and flight crews and the people that are working at the base and rebooking all those people for the next morning out would be just too much. I already gave this one away. I'm sorry. Aircraft, can you rank the airports in Iowa? And I already did that for you. You know the answer. Dubuque, Des Moines, Cedar Rapids, busiest airport in Iowa in 2020. Believe it or not, I get this question. Why can't Dubuque have a Red Lobster? And people say because it's an airport issue. The runways aren't long enough, or lobsters aren't allowed to fly, or not enough people are requesting Dubuque to have one.
It's because the lobsters don't have a real ID.
I love it. Yeah, that's right. That's good. That's a good one. That's a true answer. But yeah, so we can host the President of the United States in Air Force One. In this case, it's his 757, but not a few lobsters. And I actually had a few pictures which showed us offloading crates of live lobsters, which I always forget to find that and put that on this screen. But they do deliver lobsters into Dubuque. Another one we get is airfares are always higher out of Dubuque. Yes or no question.
All right, let's see in the chat box. I am seeing 50-50% so far. No, yes.
No, yes. Okay, well, good. Well, we're going to show you what we believe, or we know.
A strong maybe, I guess.
So, yeah, so I think the big one here, and I know there's a lot going on, but have you figured the true cost, right? True. And we actually have a true cost calculator on our website at www.fly. It's on the bottom there, flydbq.com. And right on there, there's a little calculator. You can click on it and you get to put in your own airfares. And this is an actual trip that we just looked up, round trip to Phoenix out of Dubuque for one person on April 17th through the 24th. Dubuque airfare was $377, which correct, it is higher than Moline, higher than Cedar Rapids, definitely higher than Chicago. Now, take into consideration, Dubuque does not charge for parking. It's free. If you're there for one day, if you're there for 10 days, if you're there for 2 weeks, it's free parking. Moline for that amount of time would have been $35, Cedar Rapids, $35, Chicago, unless you know a buddy that'll pick you up and take you to the airport and pick you up and bring you home from the airport and all that, you're going to be paying for that amount of time around $68 to, depending on where you park, $160. Calculating your mileage, obviously the folks on this call, tri-state area, very close, $9 compared to round trip to Moline, Cedar Rapids, Chicago. And this is off a nationwide calculator, by the way, not just, this isn't just something we made up. And then tolls. So in the end, Dubuque actually became less, right? $388. Moline, by the time you figure in parking, fuel, $399, $469, etc. So yeah, we always make sure everybody keeps in mind all those additional costs. And let me let Les remind you that driving in the winter is no fun. In the spring and fall, the animals are on the move. All the congestion that you have, not only in traffic but in the larger terminals. So you fly out of Dubuque, it's a smaller airport. There's minimal congestion. You zero touch. You get out of your car, you grab your bag, go through the automated doors. If you don't have to go to the ticket counter, if you've got the app with your ticket, you don't have to check a bag. You go right to screening. What takes you a couple of minutes to go through screening? Quite honestly, the only thing you touch is a bin, and those get wiped down now after every use. Then once you're in the sterile hold area, even our restrooms there's no doors. There's the partition wall that you walk around. There's touch-free hand washing stations, touch-free flushing, all that stuff. You self-scan your ticket when you get on the boarding bridge. And once you get into Chicago, you only might be a gate or two away from your connecting flight. You don't have to stand in all those lines and all that hassle. And if you do have any issues, you can't beat our employees at the Dubuque Airport. And a lot of them are your friends, neighbors, families. There's probably a good chance you know them, quite honestly. And they absolutely treat you like family. So with that concludes my presentation. I want to thank you all for inviting me, and looks like a great group of people, and I'd be happy to answer any questions or comments. And one last plug for our website, flydbq.com. If there's anything you want to look up, it's a great place to start. And we do have a toll-free number that's answered by people at the Dubuque Airport 24/7, 844-I-FLY-DBQ. So if you ever run into a problem in your travels, I don't think Chicago O'Hare has a toll-free number that you can call and talk to somebody at the airport, but Dubuque does. So with that, I will turn it over to you, Temwa.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Todd. And at this time, what questions do you have?
Well, I have a question. A lot of companies have, been conducting all of their meetings instead of having their people travel. They've been conducting meetings with Zoom and other software, and they're finding out that works pretty well. And why are they spending all this money on travel? Do you think that post-COVID madness, the business travel will actually rebound to former levels, or you think this is a trend?
No, and that's a great question, and we get that asked a lot. So that was a very, very good question. Number one, we're hearing there's a lot of pent-up demand to travel. So, and we can see that with the leisure travelers, right? That's where we're getting back to that 50% number. But your question is more towards business and what we're doing right now, virtually, to meeting with each other, right? We definitely believe that will continue, but we don't believe it's going to replace that person-to-person contact, those conferences, those relationships that you make when you go on these trips. We believe that, and not just me, but as an industry and other groups, think we'll definitely be back to pre-COVID numbers for travel.
Yeah.
And when that's the crystal ball, right? So if I had that crystal ball, I'd probably be a consultant for somebody making a lot of money. But yeah, no. And we're hoping 2022 is when we will be gearing back up to get we're always talking with air carriers about additional air service to an additional hub with more flights. But the industry is looking at 2023 timeframe before things get back to pre-COVID. But that was an excellent question. Thanks, Megan.
Yeah, I did read in the paper that there might be a connection to Denver in the offing from Dubuque.
Yes, yeah. And we were this close. March, early March, the chamber, Molly Grover and the airport ourselves we were in a meeting, an air service meeting where you meet one-on-one with airlines. It's face-to-face. I call it airline speed dating, actually. And we met with United and SkyWest, and we currently have what's called a SCASD grant, and that's a Small Community Air Service Development Grant. And it's written to provide service, new service westbound. So we can't use it for American, but we were meeting with those folks, and it's kind of like dangling that carrot, in front of the donkey to keep them moving and all that stuff. And we were looking at a United out of Dubuque to Denver, a couple flights a day. And literally while we were at that conference is when COVID was really coming on, that, this is a little bit more than the common flu. And so when normally there was 2 people at these meetings, it was coming down to 1 because one was flying back out to help put together a plan on, we got to clean these planes between flights. We need more people. What's our new SOPs? What's our, all this stuff. Cause this is all, new, for us as a pandemic. But Megan, we were that close to getting a second airline, going to Denver, 2 more flights a day. It would have been fantastic, but we will not stop. I promise you. We work with the chamber. We work with our business partners, Greater Dubuque Development, the city of Dubuque, of course, city council, the Dubuque County supervisors, and Travel Dubuque are the main players there. We work very closely with them.
I had a question. I was just wondering, were there any job losses due to the pandemic at the airport?
So yeah, that's a great question. So we were lucky. No, we did not have to furlough or lay anyone off. And not only was this an airport, but this was working with the city in a whole, city council, city manager, all the departments, everyone did a fantastic job working together. We did not have to furlough or lay anybody off. Matter of fact, we didn't have any early retirements. We did have one retirement, but that's because it was just natural for his decision. But otherwise, no, we were able to maintain everybody. We did put a couple projects aside and things like that. But and like I mentioned in part of this whole process, we did get some federal funding. We've got 2 rounds of that. The airports and airlines received federal funding, and we are using our portion of that to help with debt service for the next 4 years, and then any local match on federal projects, which means then we don't have to go out and bond for those, right? So we don't have to go borrow money. So that will also help us out over the next 4 years. Good question, Kathy. Thanks for asking.
I did also have one more question. Did you say that there's still, did you say light-leaded fuel, jet fuel? I didn't know.
Low lead. Yeah, I'm sorry. Sometimes I get talking and I, forget that everybody's not under, what fuels what. So jet fuel is basically, it's almost like a diesel, quite honestly. If you think about it as diesel in a diesel truck, those go into your jets or turboprop aircraft. 100 low lead is more like just gasoline that goes in a car, more of a piston. Those go in like some of the smaller, could be larger too, but typically like your smaller piston type aircraft. So really there's just two types of fuel that we use out at the airport. It's like a diesel and gas.
And do they have lead in them, or is there no lead in?
Yes, 100 low lead is one of those fuels that still has lead in them. Yes, and the FAA is working not only with 100 low lead, but also with jet fuel, which obviously there's a much larger consumption of jet fuel. And if you think of the commercial aircraft, but they're looking at alternative sustainable fuels. As a matter of fact, there's one that's been approved to be used in California and something else, and I can't remember what it actually is, but it in a sense, it's the similar, like when you go to the restaurant and they recycle the greases and use those for fuel, it's that same concept. That's what they're working on right now. And I believe right now there is a bit of a mixture of jet fuel with that, but they're definitely working on it. I mean, that's the future, right? Fuel's not going to be around forever. So, they're working on, there's solar applications and different types of fuel and all that stuff. So great question.
I care because of the environment, but also my daughter developed lead poisoning 2 years ago. And so I didn't know that there was still lead in fuel at times. There's still lead in the yellow paint that's put on the streets because it makes it stay longer. So there's still so many places that we have lead. And so I don't have extra time to put into being a warrior against using lead, but
right.
If I did have extra time, that is something that is very, very important to me.
Sure. Yeah. And just so you know, it is being addressed. It is top of mind on an aviation industry for sure.
Awesome. Any other questions?
Tim, how many people do we have on this call? Minus Kelly and yourself and myself.
We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
8.
We have 8.
Well, how about all 8 get a free pair of Fly Dubuque socks? If you could take all their names down for me, and I will deliver 8 pairs of Fly Dubuque socks to your facility. If you could make sure they get to the right person.
Awesome. Actually, 9. But yes.
Oh, you just counted yourself, didn't you? No, I appreciate everybody spending
by
the time.
drone. He'll deliver them too.
Oh, I'm sorry.
By drone, you'll deliver them, right?
Yeah. Perfect. Which, by the way, Dubuque University of Dubuque has a great drone program too. So, just another little plug for the University of Dubuque out at the airport. But yeah, no, I appreciate you all spending your evening listening to me go on about the airport. So it's obviously the very least we can do. So we appreciate your participation. And Tim, again, you do a fantastic job.